Welcome to Bible Study Together's daily dive into Titus. I'm Peter Schrock, the founder of Bible Study Together and a life and marriage coach at TogetherTransform.com. We are in week 2 of our study, and this is the second day. In this video, I will be going over the daily questions and their answers. So let's get started. Why was Paul writing to Titus? And why was this needed? Let's dive right into Titus chapter 1 by going to verse 5. All right, it says, "This is why I left you in Crete, so that you might put what remained in order and appoint elders in every town as I directed you." So the point here is that why was it that Paul was actually writing to Titus here? He was writing because he was to put things in order. Apparently, the church wasn't fully set up in Crete yet, and as a result, Titus was to be there putting things in order, getting things established within the church, and particularly helping to establish the leadership. Now, the reason why this was so important is because of what he wrote later. And you'll see here as I move down here to verse 10, he kind of talks about why it is that they needed to appoint leaders and set things in order. And it was mainly because other people were coming into the church and they were causing problems. So let's read this here in verse 10. It says, "For there are many who are insubordinate, empty talkers, deceivers, especially those of the circumcision party. They must be silenced, since they are upsetting whole families by teaching for shameful gain what they ought not to teach." One of the Cretans, or a prophet of their own, said, "Cretans are always liars, evil beasts, lazy gluttons." This testimony is true. Therefore rebuke them sharply, that they may be sound in the faith, not devoting themselves to Jewish myths and the commands of people who turn away from the truth. So this is the point here. There were people coming into the church, into this group of people there, that as they're even just in their fledgling stages of getting started. And they were, teaching commandments of people who were turning away from the truth. They were getting people excited about empty things and empty talking about stuff and traditions and myths and different things like that. And as a result, people were turning away from the truth. And so they needed to set up leadership and establish some boundaries in here in order to actually have the church be healthy. And so this is why Paul essentially is writing here, specifically to Titus, is to help get this established and get things moving in the right direction. What were the qualifications for people to be an elder? As we talked about this last week from 1 Peter chapter 5, verses 1 and 2, that an elder and a bishop or overseer are all kind of the same thing. And as a result, they use both of these terms actually in this passage. So let's jump in here in verse 6, and we're going to read through 6 through 9 here in chapter 1. "If anyone is above reproach, the husband of one wife, and his children are believers and not open to the charge of debauchery or insubordination. For an overseer," here's the other word, elder and overseer, like we talked about before, "as for an overseer, as God's steward, must be above reproach. He must not be arrogant or quick-tempered, or a drunkard, or violent, or greedy for gain, but hospitable, a lover of good, self-controlled, upright, holy, and disciplined. He must hold firmly to the trustworthy word as taught, so that he may be able to give instructions in sound doctrine and also rebuke those who contradict it." So Paul is giving Titus some instructions about how he should be looking for people who are qualified and able to be elders or overseers within the church. And he kind of breaks it down into three particular types of things. One of them is that they have a healthy family life. Another thing is that they have some upright moral character. And the other thing is that they're able to teach people how to live a godly life. And they all kind of tie back together into one specific thing here, because what a leader does in the church they're not like a boss. They're not somebody who just tells people what to do, but they're a leader. They're somebody who walks out in front of the other people, and other people follow their example from behind. And so as a result, this doesn't mean this person is perfect, as in, like, when I mean perfect, I mean that they have no room to grow or they have no weaknesses, but really it's that they can lead other people. And so in order to be able to see if they can lead other people, you need to look at their family and see, how are they leading their family? And then you need to look at the way they live their life. How do they lead their life? And then also, you need to be able to look at how they interact with other people. The sound doctrine that he's talking about here, we're going to find out later, is primarily about how to live a godly Christian life. So one of the key things here is that the person who is going to be leading the church, the people who are going to walk out in front of other people and other people are going to follow their example, need to be people who are worth following their example. And that's kind of how it lays this whole thing out. These are the people who are qualified. What has your experience with leadership in the church been like? And how does it compare with what Paul wrote? We're all going to have different experiences in the church, and I hope everybody here has had some good experiences and not just negative ones. But particularly, I've had both. And so let me just share a few of my good and bad things that I've seen and things that I've just learned from them. So particularly, one of the things that stands out to me that was really good was I learned a lot about hospitality from watching other leaders in the church. People opening their homes, bringing people in, and making me feel welcome there, and also bringing other people to their home that are outside of the area and providing places to stay and food and good times and different things like that. I built a lot of connections from people by leaders within the church who were hospitable, and it was an awesome thing for me. Also, I learned a lot about personal discipline, watching other church leaders and their regular drive to spend time in prayer and spend time with God. And so that also was a big factor for me. Another big thing too was also training children. Now I have, several children and stuff. And as a result, I've greatly benefited by watching and learning from the example of other godly men who have raised their children in awesome ways. But I've also seen, some negative examples too, which has been beneficial to me as well, because I've learned from the negative examples of other people. Some of the things that, that show up in the church often are arrogance, people who are just dogmatic, assuming that they're right about everything and they know everything and stuff like that. That can become a nasty mess. Another thing is quick-tempered. It was something that Paul mentioned as well. But, something that I've seen even more so than just people who are like yelling or angry, mean kind of people, are people who, kind of do this thing where they'll threaten and attack people in a real subtle, nasty way. They're still just as quick-tempered, and they just can rein it in a sense where they're not like lashing out at people with their arms or with their volume, but they're still doing it by threatening and attacking people, trying to tear people down in order to gain authority and reputation and different things like that. And this is really contrasts, with those who are to rebuke people and help them get on the right path. So the difference is like these people will attack people and try and tear other people down so that they can be venerated, versus rebuking people and encouraging them to get on the right path so that they can walk rightly with God. So that's a big thing that I've seen happen within the church. But overall, one of the biggest things that I've seen on both positive and negative has been people taking responsibility. So when we screw up, because we're gonna need to learn how to grow at different points in our life, and we don't have everything figured out. And so as a result, we're gonna screw up with different things. And when we do that, we need to be able to take responsibility for that. And so that's one thing that I've really seen in the church in terms of an example of both bad and good, is when a leader chooses not to take responsibility for their actions and the things that they've done, it destroys a church. And the whole thing will just come collapsing down. On the other side of it, I've also seen leaders take responsibility for their actions and the things they've said and done, and when they've screwed up big, and I've seen it create a strong, vibrant church as well. Because it's, the biggest thing is in leadership, it's not so much about being perfect, but being an example. And so, if we can learn in our mistakes, we're also being an example of a learner for everyone else who also needs to learn. So overall, this is what I've seen in this section of Scripture, and we're going to keep going deeper into these passages of chapter 1 as we keep going through this week. So see you tomorrow.